tell you a little bit about Airstream, a little bit about a non-for-profit that we run called High School 912, and then talk a little bit about Jacksonville and the landscape of sports and all that's going on. And then really the best part of that, it sounds long, but it'll be very quick, is really doing Q&A, because that's more fun for me anyway. But 6 years ago, we started Airstream Ventures. I think the pandemic, like a lot of our businesses, made us think, man, where are we really good? What do we need to be doing? The famous word pivoting, a lot of people talked about in all different kinds of industries. And so at Airstream Ventures, we found this little niche. We realized that tourism is a big deal, but in a lot of smaller cities, and even in Jacksonville, but smaller blue collar cities around the country, business tourism was drying up, because we found this little thing that I'm currently on right now called Zoom. And instead of spending money to send people in cars and paying mileage and spending airplane monies and hotel and all that, I can just jump on a Zoom with my client and I don't have to spend all that money. And so all these hotels and all these restaurants were drying up in these smaller communities all across the country due to that. Well, we saw this little inroad that said, okay, well, if that tourism's drying up, sports tourism and the weekend tourism has to evolve. And so where we are currently right now, we're in 6 different states, 9 different cities. This all transpired in the last 2 years, where we go into a smaller community, Sebring, Florida. Has anybody in here been to Sebring, Florida? So a few people. Anybody been to North Platte, Nebraska? Really, Palmer? That's impressive. I mean, that's incredible. When I normally say that, people are like, where? Well, just for those that don't know, it's right in the middle of Denver and Omaha, 3 hours either way. But we go into those communities and we say they have a convention and visitors bureau like we have with Visit Jacksonville and Mr. Corrigan here. But they have 1 person on staff or 2 people on staff, and they're trying to run their website and run the visitor center and all that. Sports tourism isn't even on their mind. And so we go in and say, why don't you let us run your sports tourism? We'll bring events to your community. We'll fill up hotels. We'll fill up restaurants. We sign a contract with them. They pay us a monthly or quarterly retainer. And here we go. And so we're in 9 different cities right now. Last year alone, we placed over 112 events in all of our different communities with an impact of about $80 million. To those different communities. And so it's kind of been a unique business model. Never dreamed I would be doing this. Never dreamed I was on the phone this morning with the American Cornhole League. If you've ever seen Cornhole on ESPN, we're trying to bring a huge event. We're in Vancouver, Washington, which is a really cool city right outside of Portland. And everybody's moving to Vancouver out of Portland because of all the duress there. But I was on the phone with the American Cornhole League talking about a big event, throwing beanbags, for a lot of money there. Case in point, interesting fact, the #1 thrower in the country last year in cornhole made $4.8 million.
Oh, wow.
Now, he was on the road 40 weeks of the year playing in all these events like a PGA Tour golfer, but paid close to $5 million throwing a beanbag. So there's just a lot of obscure events. With the pandemic, we saw the boost of golf. We saw the boost of a lot of different sports that were our hobbies, and people figured out how to make them a business. And so you have all of these kinds of things. We're bringing a big tech ball. Has anybody ever heard of tech ball? So take a ping pong table, round out the edges, take a volleyball, and you hit it back and forth, but you can't hit it with your hands. You can only hit it like soccer, and they call it tech ball. They'll have these events overseas and have 30,000 people watching this. It's making its way to America. So we're bringing all these kinds of events. I never thought I'd be doing this. But then we have, if anybody saw, flag football is now an Olympic sport. How in the world that's going to, would be an Olympic sport. But now flag football is becoming huge. And so USA Flag Football, which is the sanctioning body for the USOC and all that, we're bringing a big event here to Jacksonville in February, and we're taking 4 other events to our different cities. So that's kind of what we spend a lot of our time doing. Our growth in next year, we're hoping to add 4 to 6 more cities. And then the goal would be to be in 25 cities in 25. So I'm not smart, but I can figure out that alliteration. So 25 and 25. And that's kind of the goal in growing this. We also run, if you're familiar with the train cars, over on the east side of Everbank Stadium. We have train cars. There's 25 train cars. We manage those for the family that built it. And so now that our amazing Jaguars are really doing well, those cars are selling like that. So, but if you have a way to entertain clients or want to do some things there, it is a great way to do that. If you're looking for a place to do a Christmas party or a company party, it's a fun little venue for that. And then the other thing that we do is we run a not-for-profit here called High School 912. I started it 6 years ago. I have lived a very afforded life. I went to bowls. I went and played baseball at a private school. Been given a lot of different things by no doing of myself. And so maybe it was because I was turning 50 or getting close to 50. I thought it's time that I need to do something to give back. So what High School 912 does, we focus on high school students in academics, sports, and life. The sports piece of that is we have our high school basketball tournament that we're running next week at FSCJ. Our partners with 1010XL and News4Jax. We televise those games. We stream them. They're on the radio. We take these high school basketball players and put them into an NCAA field event that is really neat. And then we do a big lacrosse event in the spring. So that's kind of our sports. We do a fall, a basketball, and a spring media day. So if anybody listens to 1010XL or ESPN and they're at media day, SEC media days, and the coaches, you see them making the rounds. We do that with all the high school students, and they come in there, and all our local media are there, and they're interviewing them. And I will tell you, one of the coolest stories ever is this weightlifter from Baldwin High School. Okay. Name the last time you ever saw a weightlifter interviewed on TV, much less a high school weightlifter. So he comes in and sees all of these media around, and he said, "Are they all here for me?" And we said, "Yes." And he goes around and he's talking, and he sits down at the last table with 1010XL, and he puts on the headset, and he's talking about weightlifting. And he sets it down after the interview, and I just happened to be standing there. He didn't know who I was. And he said, "This is the greatest day of my life." He said, "I finally felt like I mattered and what my sport mattered." And so we put those because it's also transferable to a job interview, to all the different things. It's just communications. But then we also do academics. We realized, and I see Ed back there, but we realized with ACT and SAT scores that we have so many bright students within our Duval County public school system, but sometimes the standardized tests aren't as strong. And with my kids and maybe your kids, you put them in an ACT, SAT class, you pay $800. We don't even think about it. But a lot of kids can't afford that. And yet they have dreams of going and being something. And so we started an ACT and SAT boot camp. It's all virtual, online, through Zoom, with a third-party company, and we put them through these classes. And we've been doing it now for 5 years. We've put over 4,000 kids through these classes. The average SAT score goes up 280 points. The average ACT score goes up 9 points. These kids are now having you have to have a 3.5 or above to be able to take the program. They're now going from not being able to go into Bright Futures and not being able to go to college to now achieving Bright Futures, going to a state university. They apply for first generational scholarships, which a lot of these state institutions have. And here they are. And just because of a boot camp, their lives have been changed. And so we love this program that we do. And then we do a lot of life skills stuff on the other side we do a college scholarship. We do a social media seminar. I think we all know social media is so big nowadays, hence what we're doing right now. But for their age group and our high school students, they'll post something, and if I don't have 500 likes, that means I'm not popular. And so we're helping them with mental. Mike and I were just talking about mental health and all of that. So we're doing a lot of different life skill stuff with social media, with health and nutrition, all throughout that, in working with the public school system and private schools to supplement maybe what they can't do. And so it's purely 100% funded. Airstream Ventures puts money into it, but we have about 20 corporate partners that also put money into it, and lives are being changed. And so, I'll do a shameless plug. I would love for anybody, we're just trying to raise more money because we're trying to help kids. And we're seeing, as somebody who's been in this community for a long time, the one story I'll tell you is we were doing it at Riverside High School, and the girl was there waiting outside. And I said, "Are you here for the boot camp?" Because we do a few on campus too. And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, tell me your story." And I didn't tell her who I was or anything. And she said, "Well, I have a 4.1, but I took my SAT and I got 1,000. And I really need to get it up because I want to get out of my situation." And I said, "What's your situation? What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, I was living with my mom and her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was a drug dealer. Our house was getting shot at. So I realized if I have a chance, I've got to move out, and I'm just living in my car. And I go from parking lot to parking lot to parking lot to do this. And I realized that the only way out is for me to get a better score so that I can go to a college." And I'm proud to announce that we have kept in touch with her. She went to Florida Gulf Coast. She's going to graduate this next semester coming up with a nursing degree, and her life's going to be changed. And so there's so many great things that I love Airstream Ventures, but I love what High School 912 is doing that. And it's all based upon the Bible verse, Romans 12:9-12. And I'll let you look that up if you're curious. But anyway, so that's just kind of a little bit about what I occupy my time with, other than handing out my credit card and checkbook to my 4 daughters. Or giving them car advice, which I know very little about. So, but a lot going on in Jacksonville. A lot going on in Jacksonville. I think we all follow it. Our Jaguars are doing well. This stadium of the future is going to be very interesting. I think they're getting close, from what I'm hearing. They're getting close to be able to tell all of us what's going on and what the plans are going to be. But it's going to be exciting. I think if you look at our stadium, it is seeing some dilapidations that we need to compete with. But how's it going to affect Florida, Georgia? That's an important game that I think a lot of people in here. How's it going to affect the Jaguars? How's it going to affect the Gator Bowl? The Gator Bowl had one of their best years ever last year. How's it going to affect that? So there's a lot of things that are going on within the world of sports that we haven't thought about. And then when you think about sports tourism, it may be for 2 years, we're going to lose 10 football games from our city. So you talk about all the businesses and we're one because of the River City Railway, that are affected by all of this. The hotels are going to be greatly affected by it on those weekends in the fall. The restaurants, I've talked to a lot of them. They're scared to death about the downfall of that for a few years. Now they know it's going to come back, but how's that going to be affected? I think the world that we're in sporting events, of soccer tournaments, American cornhole things, all these events are going to be really important over the next 2 years, because they're going to help suffice what the Jaguars, and not blaming them, they need to do that, but what our community is going to give up. And so we're trying to put a plan together with the city to really look to that, because for 2 years we're going to need to do some stuff in the fall to have some events that can help supplement businesses. And it's not just hotels and restaurants. There's a lot of different things, insurance companies. There's a lot of different things that sporting events touch, employment, all those kinds of things that we need to bring in other events to help supplement that, that don't need a big stadium, but that maybe could bring an arena or something of that. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. I get asked, and I'll leave it at this, and then we can just go to Q&A, because that's a lot of fun. And if you're on Zoom and you want to ask a question, just get it to Joe, and he'll get it. But March Madness, if you look at college sports right now, football, this is Alan Verlander's opinion, but I've been around it a while. We're going to continue to see the same teams, even when we expand the playoff to 12. We're going to continue to see the same teams at the top fighting for it because the blue bloods, as everybody calls it, are just the Michigans, the Alabamas, the Georgias. They're going to be there every year. They have the money. They have the brand. Now it will be interesting when Saban finally retires, what happens to Alabama, right? But they've still been there. And so I think when you see the NIL and you see all of that, you're going to continue to see these teams. There may be a TCU like last year, but obviously we saw what happened in the championship game. And I can say that I'm a Georgia Tech fan. But Georgia is a really good football team. But, you look at basketball, though. Okay, it was one of the most exciting March Madnesses we've ever had in the history of March Madness. Think about it. FAU made the Final Four. You see all these smaller teams that are gonna be more of a presence in March Madness. As I tell people here, college basketball, people follow it here, not rabid until about March, once football's over, and then we really follow it. I think Florida's gonna have a really good team this year, or be better. FSU, I think, is gonna be better. But March Madness, you're going to see all these upsets. You're going to see that because, you only need a couple of players to be really good in basketball. You need a bunch in football. And so I think, over the next several years, because of NIL and because of the portal and all of that, you're going to see these basketball teams and not the best teams that we're used to, the Kansases and all Dukes and Carolinas and all that. You're going to see these FAUs and more teams pop up. Ever before that may be playing for a national championship, that may be playing in the Final Four. But I think, to me, with March Madness, that's the beauty of March Madness, is the upsets. If everybody held serve of every higher seed, it wouldn't be madness. It would just be a regular tournament. So I think that's the gist of it. So with that, let's just do questions. That's more fun. But I just wanted to kind of give you a little insight of what we're up to.
Alan, great to have you here, and great presentation. So 5 or 6 years ago, no one ever heard of pickleball, and now it's supposedly the fastest growing sport. You're engaged in pickleball, I'm sure.
We had a call, let's say Monday with USA Pickleball. Yeah, I've never seen. I will tell you, I've never seen a sport transition and catch fire like pickleball ever. I've been on this earth 51 years. But every city, whether I travel to Vancouver, Washington, which is one of our partners, to North Platte, to we're in Lynchburg, Virginia, where Liberty University is, to Elizabeth City, North Carolina, to Sebring, to Jack, everybody talks about pickleball. And North Platte, Nebraska is building a world-class pickleball facility out there with 24 courts. Unbelievable stuff, which is why we were actually talking to them about bringing pickleball. Is anybody here play pickleball? Decent amount of people. It is unbelievable. I mean, people love it, and the interesting thing, 8 years ago, it was thought of more of a gray-haired sport. Now it is like the socialization of young kids, of college kids. College, I read something the other day that college students are making some decisions based upon where they go to school of the quality of pickleball courts. And they are petitioning the NCAA to make it an NCAA sport, very much like tennis. So anyway.
So Alan, thanks again for coming. 2 quick questions. The odds of the NCAA tournament coming back to Jacksonville basketball, and then the chances the Jaguars actually stay in Jacksonville and go through the construction. We had Mark a couple months ago. And the vibe was he wants to probably go to Orlando or Gainesville. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'll answer the Jags first. I think, Mark is way smarter than I'll ever be, but I just don't see how you do it in the midst of running the quality of NFL game in the midst of doing construction. I don't see how you can do that. But there's a lot of people in here, I guess, with sheer construction. I mean, there's a lot of people in here that are smarter than me on that. My guess is it goes to Orlando. It's an easy trip down there. It's not what we want, but they don't have a tenant really, And so it makes it a lot easier down there. Gainesville just announced a $400 million campaign in their stadium. So you've got a lot of variables. Daytona, I think it'd be a little wonky to do it down there, and you have to spend a lot of money. And so you don't have to do as much with Orlando. But I think the goal would be that they would start construction the day after the last game, run construction, miss a year, and then run construction, then be done with it. But as we know in Jacksonville, there's a little thing called weather and hurricanes and things like that that delay stuff. So, I would imagine that we're going to see some loss of schedule, whether it's 1 year or 2 years. March Madness, so the NCAA changed up their bidding a couple years ago. They have a new NCAA president now. He's a former governor or senator from the state of Delaware. He played basketball in the Ivy Leagues, and he wanted to change everything. So what they did, it used to be that you would bid stuff kind of when events would come up, you bid it. Now they bid every event, all 96 events across the board, Division 1, 2, and 3, every 4 years. And so the new president came in and said, hold on a second, I want to evaluate this. We're going to bid it for 2 years. And then at the end of 2 years, we'll reevaluate that, and we may go back to 4 years. We may change it up, whatever. So currently bids are due in next year. So in roughly May, all the bids are due of the 96 championships for 26 and 27. Okay. And so Jacksonville is trying to bid on 26 and 27. If you look at the cities, though, and for those of us that follow March Madness, and I know you do, and the arena, and you see the same cities that are being circulated every year. You see Greenville, South Carolina. You see Orlando. You see Tampa. You see Miami. Jacksonville has been in there, but maybe not as much. And so the challenge for Jacksonville is a couple things. We have to have strong relationships at the NCAA office. Just like your businesses, sports is no different. Relationships matter, and who is talking to the head of NCAA basketball matters, because they're deciding on who's doing that. Who is on the selection committee that decides the 68 teams matters, and do we have relationships there? That's the first thing. Second thing is, our arena is nice, but it doesn't compare to an NBA arena. And cities are we're talking about putting money into the football stadium, which is phenomenal. But we can't forget about continuing to update our arena, because we'll get passed by, because y'all know, like I do, the NCAA cares about one thing: money. And then the second thing, far second, is student athlete welfare. Just being true. I can say that because I don't work at the NCAA anymore. They can't find me. But anyway, so basically, if you look at that, and they're going to look at, okay, well, we can make more money in an NBA arena. There's more options. And second, the student athletes are going to play in an NBA arena. And we're not talking about the ones that are going to go play in the NBA. We're talking about Wofford that is going to go play in that. That's what they look at. And so, for us as a city, we've got to not forget about the arena and the quality of the arena, and upgrading technology and upgrading all of that stuff. So, those right now, relationships in Indianapolis at the NCAA level with basketball, and making sure that our arena stays up to float.
Welcome to West Jax Rotary. I want to compliment you on your vision, how you monetize it to benefit communities. I got a money question.
Okay.
So as you look at tourism, merchandising, television rights, celebrity, how do you see the future? And who makes money in those niches? Who's actually making the money?
In the tourism piece, or just in sports in general?
In the sports tourism sector.
Gotcha.
Owners, parents, agents, who's making the money?
Yeah, so that's such a great question, and man, we could be here all day talking about that, but I'll give kind of a succinct answer to that. So the people that are planning these events, we all hear the AAU basketball tournaments and things like that. Those planners are making a lot of money. They're charging teams a lot, and they're charging us to go watch our kids or grandkids play. They're doing really, really well. When it comes to TV rights, now with sports tourism and that kind of stuff, it's more streaming and all of that. So they're selling licenses. So if your grandson or son or daughter is playing, they're beginning to get into where, if they're playing in a tournament in Greenville, South Carolina, sounds like I like Greenville, but I just keep using it. And so, they now stream it so that you can watch it, and they'll create an app so that if you can't travel, you can still watch your grandson or granddaughter or son or daughter play. So that they're charging you a fee for that. That company's doing a split with the event rights holder. Youth sports to me is a whole racket because you look at 4% on average of every youth sports person is going to go play at the NCAA level or NAIA level. 4%. That means 96% aren't going anywhere after high school, but yet we're spending billions of dollars selling people on a dream that they are. And so in your company, if they were trying to sell you on a dream that only 4% of the opportunity was going to allow you to go forward, I'm not sure how many people would do that, right? Now you sell me on 96%, I'm all in, but not 4%. And so I think these governing bodies that are making a lot of money, why have they made a lot of money? They've made a lot of money on all of us because we believe in that dream and we keep paying it. Now, I was talking to some friends the other day and they said, yeah, I understand that, but it's also our social life. It's part of what we enjoy doing. We love traveling. We get to see new cities. Well, if you're going to go at it that way, then that's fine. But these rights holders and these people doing these events are making a lot of money. They're really the ones, to answer your question. The hotels are they're helped. The restaurants are getting helped. The dry cleaners are getting helped, all that when you're here. But at the end of the day, the event people wouldn't continue to do it if they're not making a lot of money. Can I answer that? Okay.
Any other questions, Brown?
Alan, great to see you again. My 11-year-old son playing ball goes to Savannah, Lake City, and in Savannah, the ballpark they went to is like a college. Okay. Do you see, 10 to 11-year-olds or lacrosse, softball, that youth program? Do cities need to build a facility that can maybe attract, the parents and everybody coming? Or do you see that being done in Jacksonville maybe in the future, or other cities doing something like that to help develop?
That's such a great question. Yeah, you are seeing cities, much like colleges. We see colleges in an arms race with attracting talent and all that. We're seeing that in cities now, attracting events. Like I said, North Platte, Nebraska is building a world-class pickleball. You're seeing Lake City. If you've ever been to Lake City and you see all the ball fields that are there, they don't have the hotels to match all the ball fields there, but we represent Lake City. And so we're trying to do that. In all the cities that we're in, they're talking about massive planning, if not already in the process of building stuff. And so because it is going back to that, it's a big business. And Jacksonville has they've understood the business, in my opinion, but never gotten into the business. And so we have to bubblegum and rubber band and all the kind of thing to bring some events here. When those sports tourism events, it's hard. And so I do think Jacksonville needs an opportunity to do that. When we built Patton Park's a great soccer facility, but we gave it to the club to manage and run. You can't do other events on there. And so we've got to build. We don't have a place to do a big basketball tournament, or we have a place to do a volleyball tournament, but it's kind of all piecemeal together. And other communities are realizing that. And so they're saying, all right, why don't we do this? And there's private equity companies that are seeing that. They're realizing municipalities may not be able to afford that, but we'll come in and work a deal with you so you don't have to lay out all the money up front, but you can pay it over 30 years. But it's a lot of times off your balance sheet and those kinds of things. So there are it's getting into to be a big business with that. Jacksonville needs to, in my opinion, Jacksonville needs to get ahead of the time, even into the current times. and then get ahead of the times if we want to play ball. And right now, you don't see a lot of that with us.
I understand that the fairground is going to move, so that big chunk of land down there is going to free up. What's your understanding? What's the vision? Is that going to be part of the expansion of the football stadium, or is that an opportunity to maybe grow our arena, or how do you see that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Shot has made it very clear that he wants that, and that's part of the whole deal of moving that out there. But I think they're looking at, they just built, Miller Electric and everybody involved with that, kudos, because that is a world-class facility. If you haven't been in it, you need to try to get a tour in there because it's amazing. But next to that, I think they're trying to, this whole Lot J development and what they're trying to do, they're trying to gobble up all that land so that they aren't exactly landlocked in that and they can do some stuff around that. I don't see the arena expanding in regards to that. I think it would be more Jaguar driven. From what I understand, and you would just see more development going on that maybe helps bring more revenue to the Jags, but also an enhancement for Jacksonville as a whole.
Alan, I have a question. Given your years of history working in college athletics, I know you're obviously happy to be out of it now. From our point of view, the whole concept of the transfer portal and the NIL is more or less chaos, if you will. It's created in our minds chaos. A lot of schools like mine on this have benefit from the transfer portal, but it really does appear to be problematic in the fact that a player can commit to receiving X amount of money, go play, and if he leaves and goes somewhere else, it becomes kind of like the Wild West of the highest bids. Does the NCAA have any ability or desire or authority at this point to regulate that to the grounds of saying, okay, if you commit to playing for the University of Alabama and you get a $1 million deal from Nick Saban's auto dealership or something like that, if you leave after X amount of time, you have to pay back part of it, or you need to pay back all of it, something else? Is there any kind of recourse that could come out of that?
The short answer is no. I mean, there should be, but right now there's not. The NCAA has lost a lot of leverage, I think, as we've all seen. They still have it in basketballs and baseballs and all that, but in football, it's all run by the CFP. And so I think what the athletic directors of the Power Fives are going to do, which will pretty quickly be the Power Four, maybe, unless you count the Pac-12 as a conference with 2 teams. But they're going to have to come up with the regulations around that. I mean, it is. I've got some friends whose sons are playing at the highest level, and it is, they're promised this, and sometimes they don't ever receive it, or they get it and then they leave in January. And there's no rhyme or reason to anything. And so I think it's the kind of thing like it would be with employership of, you come here, we're going to pay you per month based upon this. If you leave early, you're not getting it. And then there's a lot of cases where student athletes come in, here's $1 million deal, and you didn't stay, so we're not giving you anything. Well, that's not fair either. So it is such a mess right now. My personal opinion is I hate it because we're devaluing education. It doesn't matter about college education anymore. It's about the almighty dollar. And, again, going back to percentages, 2% of football players are going to make it in the NFL. So you got all these others that they think they're there, but they're not. And so where's their education? And so these kids that are going to 3 different universities over the course of their career, well, I mean, where's the teachings within our world of workmanship about commitment, about culture, about loyalty? We're devaluing all of that stuff because of what we've created within this. I'm not against college kids being paid, but to your point, William, there's got to be regulations around this, and somebody's got to take the bull by the horns. Bill Hancock, who's the head of the college football playoffs. Small trivia question. So the very first time we hosted the NCAA basketball tournament here in Jacksonville, and the Gators played in it, if y'all remember, in 2006, Bill Hancock was the head of communications for the NCAA and was at our tournament, and has been a good friend for a long time. So it's funny to watch him now, and I'll shoot him a text, and it's like, yeah, it's a lot different than it was back in 2006. But there's got to be regulations, or you're going to continue to just get craziness,
Which youth sport would make the most sense as far as Jacksonville investing in a first-class facility?
You know, that's the one thing that we tell all of our communities, don't just go build baseball fields because you want to build baseball, because everybody around you might have great ones. And so don't jump in, be something that other communities are not. You look at Sarasota, they took a dilapidated area and made now a world-class rowing facility. They do 52 weeks of rowing. Sounds boring, but the economic impact is in the billions. And they decided to do that. I think for us, in my personal opinion, is lacrosse is a untapped and is a rising sport, maybe not to the level of pickleball, but it is booming. And you're seeing less and less kids play football, more and more kids play lacrosse. Not many communities around the country have gotten into that yet. And so because most lacrosse facilities have to share with soccer, and sometimes they don't play well in the sandbox together. And so if we had a dedicated boys and girls lacrosse that we can also use for some other events, I think we could really capture a lot of different opportunities here. That's just Alan Verlander's opinion. Thank you all so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. That was tremendous. On behalf of the entire club, we have a small token of our appreciation.
So wine comes later?
Yes. It's a drinking club. What can I say? You know, and I noticed that you didn't include the University of Florida in your list of blue bloods that make it to the playoffs every year. I just want you to know there's a lot of hurt feelings in this room. And as a Seminole fan, I really hate it. So, in any event, before I get something thrown at me, next week, our speaker is going to be Ed Perez. He's the CEO of 3 Grains of Rice Mission. Ahead of time, I'd like to apologize. I will not be able to make it, but our president-elect, Tim Johnson, will be leading his very first meeting. I know he's going to do an outstanding job. Thank you, Tim. Wrapping up our announcements, we have a board meeting in about 5 minutes. Once everything ends, you're more than welcome to attend. It's a great way to have a makeup. Check your bell ringing times if you signed up for Publix this Saturday. And RSVP for the Christmas party, which will be right here December 13th. Right here December 13th, and RSVP via DACDB. If you can't do DACDB, reach out to Patty, reach out to myself, reach out to somebody, and we'll make sure that we get you down. Having said that, I'd like to ask Mary Pat Wallmeyer to lead us in the 4-way test.
Gentlemen, let us recommit ourselves to our with the 4-way test. First,
is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you very much. And thank you to our guests today, Michael Ritter and Walker. Let's go make the world a better place.
Yeah.